This morning. Chair out of the way. We have enough chairs. Oh, we have some absences. How to stop making bad decisions. Our subject for today. How to stop making bad decisions. Now, the answer to this is, you've got to have an excellent judge about the difference between right and wrong, don't you? To be able to make good decisions. So today I'm going to share with you the last part of the assessment. And this will test how clearly you think about sales. We're just going to talk about this little myopic little bit called sales. We're not going to talk about how you think about fashion. We're not going to talk about how you think about football, how you think about kids, how you think about your dad, how you think about other things. There are an infinite number of things you could think about. I'm going to share with you the science behind how people think clearly, and then we're going to focus it on sales. When you understand this system, you can improve the quality of your thinking. When you improve the quality of your thinking, what happens? Mr. York?
When you improve quality?
Improve the quality of your thinking, what happens?
You improve your quality, then you improve your quality,
They are going to respond better because you're making better decisions, right? Because your judgment has improved. So am I saying that sometimes all of you make bad decisions? Yeah, so do I. So how can you have a system for testing? So thus far, we talked about stimulus and response, and the fact that in lower animals, stimulus and response are knitted together because when they are, entities tend to survive. We, as human beings, are imbued, we have for 100,000 years, had this ability to pause between the stimulus, after the stimulus, and then respond. And when we have the ability to choose, we can choose a response that is better than how we pick them when we just do it emotionally. Now, when you engage with a person, and you do this all the time, every day, you have the ability to choose your response. Now, what I taught you on Monday was, how can I understand how people behave? We started with you. We defined dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance as the four behavioral factors that understanding these helps us understand how we behave. And then we can do this, I'm okay. This is how I naturally behave. And then you went out and you watched how other people were reacting at the bar, and you learned how to begin to understand how to identify behavior in other people. How does that help you? Well, you can understand them so you don't get mad at them. Then, we embarked upon the idea that people are all motivated. Every human being on the face of the earth is motivated in 7 different ways. And we looked at the motivators as a source of information to know how you are motivated, and then by listening carefully to understand how others are motivated. Now, why do we do all that stuff? To improve the quality of our response to other people. When we do that, and we don't get so emotionally involved, we give ourselves the ability to make higher quality decisions. Now, how can we test them? What is a good decision? Ms. Johnson. What is a good decision?
Whatever's going to like benefit you the most.
Whatever benefits you the most. Okay? Ms. Leone, what's a good decision?
I would say something that you feel like confident with afterwards. Like maybe wait until after the decision's made and after.
So you judge what's happened afterwards to determine that the decision was a good one. Ms. Gentry, what's a good decision?
So it says something like she did, something that you feel good about, that you had a good decision, that you something you made.
So if you feel good about it afterwards, success is feeling good about yourself. You make a good decision, then you feel good about it afterwards. Well, there's a problem with defining what is good. What's the big problem?
Different for everyone. Multiple aspects. Different for everyone.
So good is different for everyone, right? Is that true? This problem has perplexed philosophers for eons. Like, what is good? Can you identify an objective value for good rather than a subjective good where everyone's perception is good? And they tangle with this over and over and over. So, a fellow by the name of Robert Hartman, a German, in the 1930s, he was a psychologist, he started wrestling with this. He did his initial research inside Germany, and he was Jewish. What's the problem?
The time period in which he was
Yeah, he was, or his natural origin, he was Jewish in a society where the Germans were rounding up the Jews, right? So he watched as the Nazis carried out a systematic effort to identify sociopathic behavior in Germans. Essentially, the behavior to be able to kill without remorse. And then he watched as Hitler put those people in charge of the concentration camps to exterminate the Jews. He saw it. Horrified, he said, the Nazis had figured out how to identify evil in people. He said, if they can do evil, there must be a way to identify good. And then he hypothesized. He was a mathematician. He said, there must be a way to identify quantifiable gradients in good and quantifiable gradients in bad or evil. And he theorized you ought to be able to do this mathematically. Better shades of good, worse shades of good. Remember your questionnaire? Remember how on one part of it you rank ordered things from good to bad and agree to lesser forms of agreement? You took Hartman's test. Hartman finally figured out an objective value, an objective definition for good. It's this. Something is good if it fulfills the specifications of its intention. Let me repeat that. Something is good if it fulfills the specifications of its intention. What's this mean? It's good if it does what it's supposed to do. Now you think to yourself, oh, that's no big deal. Oh yeah? This has been unsolved by philosophers since the beginning of time. Hartman finally nailed it. So let me explain what this means. I want you to think about the pair of shoes you have on right now. How would you define what a good pair of shoes is? Mr. Meredith, for you.
Good support. I'm on my feet often, so something for good support.
Okay, good support on your feet. Now, when you put those shoes on this morning, you have a choice of several pair of shoes.
Yes.
So why this morning did you wear those?
This is a professional dress in comparison to the rest of my shoes.
So what did you want to accomplish today?
That was the aesthetic value of the shoes as well, but between this and the other pair that I have that are professional, this is the better achievement support.
But supports come later. But first of all, it was you wanted to feel good, or you wanted other people to look at your shoes and see the beauty, see the aesthetic in your shoes.
Myself.
Yourself. So the first one he said, it's important to me. This is what is called the intrinsic value. Now, you identified why, and everyone, there are an infinite number of choices, of reasons why people would choose to wear a pair of shoes, right? Infinite. So, you decided that you wanted to wear that pair. So, what would it help you do today?
Convey a message of uniform.
Okay. What else?
I knew that I would be walking.
Be walking.
Something to keep me on my feet and
Okay.
not be uncomfortable.
And comfortable. Comfortable. And he'd be walking. So this is the doing dimension. The doing dimension is called extrinsic. And then, once you think about what you want, and then what you're going to do, then you choose the shoes. So you thought about the two pair of shoes, and you selected the black pair.
Yes.
And the shoe is the idea. It's what am I going to wear? Just that. What am I going to wear? What's it going to look like? Is it going to meet the specifications of my intention? And the idea, the concept of the shoe is, we bought that originally. It's shiny. It has laces on it. When you pull the laces, it tightens down. It has rubber on the soles. And it has room for your feet, of the right size. All of those specifications describe the systemic dimension. every decision you make is a product of how you evaluate these three dimensions in making a decision. Let's try another one. Ms. Jackson, why did you decide to wear those sandals?
Because they're the easiest things to put on.
So for you, it was ease today. Slip them on easy, okay? So you had that idea, you just had one pair of shoes to choose from?
Yeah.
You could have chosen
About 6 more.
6 pair. I got 6 pair of shoes, okay? So this morning, what I want to do is I want to make it easy. I'm late, okay? That's my decision tree. That's my intrinsic. So you go and you pick a pair of shoes, boom, and you put them on. Now, in order for it to be easy, you need to be able to slip in and out of them quickly. So the specification of the shoe is that a sandal's easy to get into, you pull the back part up, you're gone. Now, is that a good shoe for you today?
You're talking about...
For you.
Yes.
It's a good shoe. Now, how does she know it at the end of the day?
Fulfills specifications the entire day.
If it fulfills the specifications of her intention. If it does what it's supposed to do. Questions?
Intrinsic is how you feel about it.
Is that it's the dimension of the person. Dimension of, in the external environment, hold on. Two worlds we live in. We live in the world outside of us, and we live in this world inside here. And these dimensions cross both worlds. So the answer to your question is, in the intrinsic dimension, there are two worlds. The first world is how I relate to other people. The internal dimension is how I feel about me. So when you're thinking about shoes, you're thinking about, for you, it was ease. I don't want to be late. Now, what happens if it rains? Is that a good decision? Maybe not, because I have to go around in squishy shoes. So maybe when I evaluated my choices in the morning, and I overvalued me, instead of thinking about the systemic, the external environment, I erred. I should have gotten my phone out to look at the weather report. So tomorrow morning, when you're thinking about ease, you can think, well, wait, is it going to rain? Then that will alter your decision about the shoes that you wear. Now, extrinsic. The extrinsic is about doing. It's the whole doing dimension. It's about cause and effect. So in the external, it's about, do I understand the relationship between, in a process? If I do this, I'll get that. The extrinsic is the bridge between me and the systemic, okay? It's how you get there. People make choices on all 6 dimensions. 3 in the external world, 3 in the internal world. Other questions? Yes. Systemic? S-Y-S?
No, it's funny.
Oh, explain it. The systemic dimension. This is the whole dimension of concepts, ideas. In the external. Ideas. Systems. Order. Authority. It's everything about the shoes that you have on. It's the features. It is the laces, how close they go together, the manufacturer, it's how this is made. Everything about the shoe is contained in the systemic external. Now on the internal, the systemic is about where I intend to go as a person. I am going to accomplish this. Now that I've defined this, I want you to pull out your profiles. I want you to go to page 13. Now, as this is the first time you have visited this model, this one is the toughest to get your arms around. So if you have questions on this, if it doesn't quite resonate, make an appointment with me and come see me. So, what you have on this report is the external world is in the top, the internal world is in the bottom. Got it? The dimensions are on the side. You can see the dimensions. People, task, system. On the top. On the bottom is myself, my roles, my future. Now in this one, we're not talking about shoes, we're talking about sales. How clear am I about the sales realm and me in sales? That's what this evaluates. So let's talk about the external dimension. Scores go between 4 and 10. When you score between 8 and 10, that is excellent. Excellent clarity. When you score between 7 and 8, that's above average. When you score between 6 and 7, that's average. When you score between 5 and 6, that's below average. When you score between 5 and 4, that is poor. It doesn't mean if you score a 4 that you're a bad person. All it means, let me get your attention here, all it means is you don't have good clarity. If you don't have good clarity, what does that lead to? Bad decisions, poor decisions. So if you have a low score, this is feedback to you that you need more clarity there. How valuable to say, wow, now at the end I'm going to show you all of your attributes from top to bottom. And you'll be able after this to identify where you need to focus to improve the quality of your decision making. That's where we're headed. So in the top category, look at 3, 6, first number 1. Number 1 is the average of 3, 6, and 9. It gives you a general evaluation of your judgment about your external world. Second, the emotion that you use, the level of emotion when you make decisions in the external realm. Now, if the mean on this is 7. So if you score above 7, it means that you tend to be more cognitive. You tend to be less emotional and use your brain more. If you score below 7, it means you're making emotional decisions. Just instant feedback. Now then, you've got the 3 dimensions. You've got feeling, being, thinking. Let's talk about the intrinsic realm. Number 3. Intrinsic realm is how well you understand other people. If you have high clarity, it means when you engage with others that you have a pretty good understanding of behavior and motivation. You understand them pretty well. If you don't, then this is an indication that you need more work here. And frankly, this is this whole conversation about DISC and motivation to help you improve the clarity of the intrinsic realm, intrinsic dimension. Underneath, you see overvalue and undervalue. See that? When you overvalue, it means when you answered the Hartman questionnaire and you ranked your scores against his ideal. The ideal is the absolute levels of good and evil, of the variance. If you overvalue, you take his number 7, you move it up. If you undervalue, you undervalue. And when you do that, emotion either flows in or it flows out. Let's take an example. Who would like to make a contribution? Okay. Now, Mr. Lang, in number 1, you have a score of 8.0, right? Number 3.
Yes.
Number 3, 8.0. Are you undervalued or overvalued or neutral?
For number 3?
For number 3, then number 4 is the under-overvaluation.
I'm confused after asking, sorry.
Number 4
Yes.
is undervaluation.
Yes.
Number 5 is overvaluation.
Yes.
Okay. So, high score. So he has an excellent score at understanding other people, so that the emotion that's involved is intentional. The higher the level of clarity, the more you do it on purpose. So when he evaluates people, he has a very good understanding of people, and how he treats them is undervalued, which means you keep a distance.
Yeah.
If you were neutral, you would be analytical. You would evaluate. You wouldn't have any emotion involved. If you overvalue, you'd get close. You'd say, "Hi, how are you?" Okay? Now here's what we know about Mr. Lang. He has a low I. And your social drive is, remember that one? How high your helping others is?
It's pretty high.
Pretty high. So he's got the drive to want to help people, and the way he thinks about it is, he understands people well, but he keeps his distance. Question is, does that help you get what you want? Is that good for you? Well, the answer is, I don't know. What's it in reference to? Now, in general, you tend to keep your distance. There are times when you pause, when you meet someone, that you analyze it and you think to yourself, I need to create a relationship with this person. I want to get to know them better. So your decision is, the best way for you to get to know them is to keep about 3 feet away, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because of your low I. But you will begin to ask questions and understand them. This is the intrinsic dimension in the external. Guys, I know I'm stretching you on this. If I'm stretching you too far, it's okay. Just absorb as much as you can. Any questions at this point? Let's do the extrinsic. Someone. Mr. Jones? Okay. Extrinsic, you have a score of 8.6? 8.6. Now this is the doing dimension. We're now talking about number 6. Question, Ms. Knott?
No, I never got it.
Sure.
Are you talking about, are we on like number 6 and not like our score on that? Is that what you're asking? You know what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Number 6, the doing dimension. It says sales, operations, and processes. This is processes. This is cause and effect, how selling works. So, Mr. Lang said to us, when he sells, what he does is he tends to take 3 feet away. He tends not to become the person's friend in selling them. That's his technique.
It sounds very good.
Well, here's the point. Should you be best friends with your clients? If you are, what happens?
Emotional resilience.
Not necessarily if you overvalue the relationship. If you overvalue, what you tend to do is you believe them. Yes, right. You ask a question, they give you an answer, you go, yeah, right. He's skeptical. Right? No, wait a minute. He's got more questions to ask. So, do you need this? No, I don't. Well, you're going to ask some more questions to figure out if they really need it. Because listen, people lie. Right? They don't tell you the truth for your salesman. Why? Because if they tell you the truth, you may sell them something. So what Mr. Lang is doing here in his undervaluation as a salesperson is not conveying trust right away, but he understands them really well. This is his technique. Now, in the doing dimension, Mr. Jung has an 8.6 score, and he undervalues success. So he values the process of selling, but the undervaluation says, I'm not sure how to do it. If he overvalued it, he'd say, yeah, I got it. I really understand this. Let's go. If you have an undervaluation on number 7, it's the reason you came into my course. Because my job is to teach you the process of how to persuade. Now, what if you're neutral? Neutral means I'm thinking. The higher the score, the more it means I'm cognitive. I understand the process and I'm executing it. With a low score, it means I don't understand process. I can't put one thing in front of another. I'm not sure. I make mistakes. Now, do you undervalue or overvalue problems? Overvalue. What happens if you overvalue when you make a mistake in the process of persuading someone? You beat yourself up. The overvaluation is, I beat myself up. I shouldn't have done that. What if you undervalue it? Hey, no problem. I'm not going to look at it. Is that a problem? Yeah, if I undervalue and I don't know, it means you're not learning. Questions? Now let's take a look at the systemic. The systemic is concepts. Mentally constructed concepts. If you're selling water bottles, can I borrow this for a second? It's how this is manufactured, what the plastic is, how this screws on. Everything, every feature, every advantage of this is a part of the systemic. How you're managed by your sales manager. Now, if you have a high score here, it means, Mr. Hall, what's your score? 8.2. Excellent score. So Mr. Hall has a pretty good understanding of concepts in sales. Now, but you undervalue it. Now, when you undervalue concepts, it means that you believe you have a better way. Is your C low? And this? Yourself. Next one.
4.3.
4.3. Yeah, kind of low. So that low C is, I kind of want to do things my way. And your D is high. So your D says, I'm going to do it my way, not the right way. That's his natural behavior. And it's manifesting, it's showing up in how you treat systems. In a fraternity, do you always follow the rules of your apartment building? Or see? Look at him smile. No, I do it the way I want to do it. So Mr. Hall tends to be a bit of a system fighter. Now, is this helpful in sales? Well, the good news is that you have this natural sense of you wanting to go out and do it on your own. Make some mistakes every now and then, you fix it, do it, fix it. What this is conveying to you, and if an organization ran this on you, they would know that you're a bit of a maverick, and that you would tend to fight the system. So you need to learn, in terms of improving your thinking, when it's appropriate to follow the system. Because systems are designed for what? Success. So you have a tendency to fight the system, and you think it's going to be better for you, and it winds up not. Oh, how to be a successful salesperson. You better understand the system and at least rise to neutral, where you are evaluating the system. Now, if you overvalue the system, what's that mean? Ms. McDowell? You? Number... Yeah, 9, 10, and 11. So number 10, you have an overvaluation. Neutral, she's thinking about it. And number 11? Overvalue. So if there's something wrong with the system, Ms. McDowell says, hey, there's something wrong here. Why do we have to do it this way? If you undervalue, you say, not a problem, let it go. If you're neutral, you think about it. Okay, now as you look at your scores, and you look at your over and under evaluation, any questions? Kind of scary how this works? Sure.
Like, all of my numbers are pretty large. How do people, I don't have any lower numbers. How does that
What does that mean?
Since there's not any low numbers. That makes sense?
Low numbers meaning 4s and 5s?
Yeah, I don't have any of those.
So clarity means two things. It means that your score in each of the dimensions is high. That means in that dimension, I have good, clear thinking. Now, when your scores are proportionate in either the external or internal dimension, it means that you're thinking proportionately about the person, the process, and the system. When you do that, your decision making gets better. Now what happens if you don't? If you have what we call an astigmatism? So someone who has different scores in the 3 dimensions. Raise your hands. Use you as an example.
4s and 5s, you said?
In the external, you have 6.8, 8.0, 8.4. Okay? Let's use this one. So she has 6.8.
8.0, 8.4.
So as Ms. Jackson is evaluating the external environment in sales, what she values the most is the systemic. So that's where her primary focus is. What's the system? How does it work? If you're selling, if you're selling this cup, you're thinking about plastic, how it works, how it's manufactured. Okay. Second, 8.0, if you're 0.4 away from each one, the computer assumes it's equal. So equivalent, extrinsic, so how do I persuade? If I say this, if they say that, I should say this. If they say that, I should say this. This is a pretty good score on the extrinsic. Now, she has an astigmatism. Essentially, she's got these two dimensions, but this one is something that she just doesn't think as clearly about. What does this mean? As she sells, she tends to use a process to explain the product, and she doesn't ask about needs. She doesn't think about why a person would want it. We're going to talk about this at length. This is why Daniel Pink's coming up. He's a master at how to win friends and influence people. Phenomenal understanding of the intrinsic. The key to sales, to your sales, is boosting your understanding of the intrinsic. And that is to spend more time getting to know the person, what they're doing, how they're exercising, how they need liquids. Then you can recommend the right product. When you have an astigmatism, you tend to recommend the product that they don't need, but you like. Does that make sense? Questions? Is this clear as mud? This hollow? Clear as mud. Okay. Okay. Let's use another one.
Well, two of mine are the same. Okay.
Well, we haven't done, let's do the intrinsic for you before we leave. Let's do the bottom part. So the intrinsic on the bottom is, your score is
8.8,
8.8,
7.0, and then 6.2.
6.2. So on the surface, Miss Jackson, when she thinks about selling, the internal value of selling, she's thinking about herself. And she has an enormous level of self-confidence in herself. I believe in myself, don't you? Bingo. Now, process. This is me in the role of selling. And notice, this is a little lower than this one. We call this irritability. It means you have a pretty good understanding, an excellent understanding of sales, but you in sales is not as strong. It's slightly less. But the one where you have the big irritability is you understand the system, but you don't know what you're going to do in the future. What job am I going to get? Right? How do you feel about that? This is in the dimension. You're neutral on the 6.2. See that? Now, when you have a lower score, neutral means, I don't know. I'm stuck. If you're overvalued here, you're going to go, I don't know what I'm going to do. If you're undervalued, you go, I'm not thinking about that. So this helps you evaluate how you're thinking about sales now. How many of you, when you came into class, came with the attitude, I'm in sales, boy, I can hardly wait? Raise your hands. One. I know that. Now what this does is it gives me a measure of how you are thinking about sales. Why is that valuable? Because it's my job to teach you individually. And my objective is to help every one of you understand how to persuade first. That's the first element. Then when you see that, when you can understand how to persuade, because I'm going to capture here, I'm not sure how this process works, And I can have an undervaluation on the external, I could say, and it is beyond me. I keep trying it. I can't persuade people. They upset me. Urgh. That's why you're here. Questions? Mr. Jones?
What can I do if I have really low, like poor value of self?
Okay. Let's just do this one, and this hollering, we still have time. Okay. So what happens if you have low scores? Okay, in general, what does that mean?
I have poor clarity.
Yeah, you have poor clarity. Is that bad? Well, if you were in sales right now and you were doing it, that's not good. Like, why did you do this? See, the emotional part of the external and the internal is extremely important here. If your score is lower than 7, it means that you are more emotional as you're making decisions, and your tendency is to connect stimulus and response and do what you feel, right? But the higher your score, the more you are separating stimulus and response, and you're thinking about it. Now, it could be, if your scores are low, that you're not thinking clearly. Is that an indictment of your character? No. Why are you here? One of our stated tasks as professors is to help you think more clearly. This is the indicator of how clearly you do that. Now the question is, what are you going to do to improve your clarity? That's why you're here. Now, those scores. Intrinsic?
6.4, 4.2, 5.5,
5.5, okay. Highest score, intrinsic, 6.4 is above average. 6.4. 6 and 7 is above average, that's average. So it's an average level of a belief in myself and me doing sales, okay? .5, average, below average. When you came into this course, you could not, it was difficult for you to see that a future in sales, right? And then, how about you in sales? 4.2. No! If you have scored, anyone have a, some people have a 4. I'm not going into sales. I know that. Now the question is, why? Just one editorial comment. Of all the students who have jobs, 12 months after graduation, what percentage are in sales across all colleges? Half. In the business college, 3/4. Why?
Is that where most of the opportunities are?
That's where you start. That's where you start. So if you don't want to go into sales, but those are the jobs available, well, I guess maybe Derry was right. Maybe I could sell. Well, can you persuade first? You understand how to persuade, then you can apply it to a product, and then you can be successful persuading people to buy the product or service. Sometimes that's the entry level into a great company. That's where everybody starts. So it's okay when you come in here and you get 4s on your future, 4s and 5s. You score this, I'm not going into sales. Those are rectifiable once you understand how. All right, one more. Let's talk. Let's take a look. External.
8.0, 8.0, 8.8.
Wow. Those are really good scores. Internal?
8.8. 5.0. 7.8.
So what do we know about how Ms. Holloran has entered the course? It is, she understands the ideas, the systems, the order, the authority, how selling works. Have your parents been in sales?
My dad.
Your dad. So your understanding of it comes from him. And she has a very good idea in 8.0 about the process. You going to shadow your dad? You'll love it. Wait on your shadowing of your parents till at least the last couple chapters of Pink. Because I want Pink and I to teach you the process. Then you can watch your dad, you can ask him questions. Dad, why did you do that? What do I mean, why? Well, you said this and this. Why did you say that? Because I always say it. Yeah, but what I've been taught is this. Your dad will go, oh, that's a good idea. Extrinsic, 8.0. Intrinsic, does she understand people? Yes. So the external world of sales is not scary to you. Now, how does she view herself, the internal? Number one, I believe in myself. I can do it. 7.8, yeah, I can kind of see myself in sales, but roll. Now, here's the irritability. She knows the process, she understands, she's just frustrated. Like, I could do it, I just don't know how. Okay. Questions? Now, this process, this method and process of understanding how you think about sales is just about sales. It's not about how you wear your hair, how you study for astronomy, how you do other things. This is just sales. But it is as accurate an assessment as exists because of the mathematics involved in the model. That's why when you read it and you evaluate it, it's so accurate. If you want feedback on you, please make an appointment, come see me. I'd love to do it. So today, I started with the notion of how can you stop making bad decisions? The answer is, you need to have a better system of right and wrong. This is the science here we call axiology. It's the science of how people value things. I've introduced you to the idea of your clarity in sales, and when you take this and look at the attributes, here are the attributes. Next page, after page 13, I think it's page 14, 15, and the following page, right here, this lists your attributes based upon your level of clarity right now. Give yourself a pat on the back on the ones at the top, ones on the bottom. These are the things that I need to work on. It will improve my clarity, and when it improves my clarity, what happens to my level of persuasion?
In regards to the quiz on Friday, can you explain that?
Yes.
What would you expect?
Quiz on Friday. You're going to read the first Pink chapter. Easy reading. You'll like it. I'm going to have 5 questions directly from the chapter. Some are definitional, some are application. You're going to have to apply what you read. You're going to take the quiz. Then we're going to have a discussion of the major points. Team 1 is going to be very careful to listen, because after Labor Day, the next Wednesday, you are going to make a presentation of the major points. Team 1, you don't know who you are, right?
Is the first chapter on
Okay, I've already uploaded it to Blackboard. All the team,
Yeah, they're on there.
yeah, they're all up there. I may have to add a few people to it, and I'll check on that this afternoon. So the teams are up there. You know the teams you're on. Just check Blackboard, and off we'll go on Friday. Other questions?
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Mr. Vincent, could you push the red button?